Hi everyone, welcome to today's 30 on Thursday. Today's presentation will be Delving In, an Introduction to Microsoft Delve. If this is your first time joining us, our 30 on Thursday webinar series is a bi-weekly SharePoint webinar series where we talk all things Microsoft SharePoint. Our next webinar will be Changing Your Look, Creating a Custom Design Gallery Theme in SharePoint 2013 on March 12th. To register for this webinar and to see our full schedule of all of our upcoming webinars, please visit our website, sharepoint.protiviti.com. We will be doing live tweeting today during the webinar. Please tweet us your questions and feedback at ProtivitiSP and use the hashtag 30TDelve. Today's session is being recorded. You can access the recording of today's webinar and all of our past sessions at sharepoint.protiviti.com/archivedwebinars. Again, for questions during the presentation today, you can use the GoToMeeting toolbar in the question window, or you can tweet us your questions at ProtivitiSP, again using the hashtag 30TDelve. So today's session topic again is Delving In, an Introduction to Microsoft Delve. Our presenter today is Maggie Swearingen with Protiviti, and I am Julia Marple, and I will be moderating today's session. So let's get started. Maggie, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yep, I see the presenter mode.
That's not what we want. Hold on. How are we now?
Looks good.
Great. Okay, well, welcome everyone. I'm glad everyone was able to join us this afternoon. We're going to talk about an exciting new topic. Well, it's exciting to me anyway, and I hope it'll be exciting to you too. We're going to talk about Microsoft Delve. I will be delving in, pardon the pun, in a few minutes, and we'll take a quick tour of the site. We're going to talk about what Delve actually is, how it works, why we should care, and kind of what the future potentially looks like for Delve. So what is Delve? Well, this is my definition. It's a contextual productivity experience based on your activities across the Office 365 platform. Essentially, what it's doing is it's taking account of all of the things that you're doing in Office 365, whether they're in SharePoint, whether they're in Outlook, whether they're in Link, and it's pushing you content based on who you're speaking with, what you're doing, what groups you're working with, and essentially all of the content that you're interacting with across the site. So how does it work? Well, a lot of you have probably seen this slide before. And this is actually a slide from Microsoft when they introduced Office Graph last year at the SharePoint conference in 2014. Office Graph is what powers Delve, and essentially what it is it looks at your activities across the site and your relationships, and it calculates what kind of content you would want to be seeing at any given time. It presents the most relevant content in different contexts. For example, it uses a two-step analysis. First, it looks at what users are most relevant to you in your particular context. So let's say other members of your SharePoint site. And then it takes a look at what those people are also doing and what content they're interacting with. So this brings about for a lot of us a lot of questions, a lot of concerns, a lot of excitement. What I love about this tool and what I hope you love about it at the end of this webinar is that it really puts everything you need from a content perspective at your fingertips right when you need it, which I think is fantastic and interesting. So this is a screenshot of what a home page for Delve looks like. And we'll jump into a demo right now, and this is going to become a lot more clear for us. But a few things that I want to mention before we start the demo. First off is that Delve is being currently rolled out to all of the Office 365 tenants. They started this fall. They were wrapping up hopefully sometime in early 2015, rolling them out to all the existing tenants. So some people may have it already, some people may not quite have it yet, but it should be pervasive, momentarily if it's not already. If you're interested in getting the features that they roll out in Delve before everyone else who's an Office 365 owner, you can actually configure that in your administrator settings. You can opt into the first release program. I would strongly recommend doing that. Actually, Microsoft is looking for a lot of feedback from the users, and they're following a very iterative development process to produce this. So if you opt into first release, you'll be able to see kind of what they're doing, what's cutting edge, what's interesting, and provide feedback. Delve is on in your system by default, but you can turn it off. As an administrator, you can turn it off, or as an individual, you can turn it off, which is really important. And that's going to be a really important message for your users as you're rolling it out at your organization. One minute here while I get our demo up. All right, can everybody see our demo site of Delve?
Yeah, it looks good.
Great. Just wanted to make sure I switched screens well. So what we have here is the actual Delve interface, and you'll notice that mine has been very active with a lot of tests over the last 24 hours. This content is constantly refreshed. The first thing I want to point out to you as we're looking at this are some privacy messages. So I think the first thing that most people think when they're looking at Delve is, hello, Big Brother is watching. That's true to an extent, but Big Brother is giving you a lot of opportunities to understand where it's culling its information from. I would encourage you to read these privacy statements and to better understand how Delve works before you roll it out in your organization so that you can speak to that at your initial rollout meetings. That being said, put very simplistically, Delve doesn't show you anything or show your colleagues anything that they shouldn't be seeing. It takes a similar approach to SharePoint security trimming. So if you are not able to see something in SharePoint, you don't see it. It doesn't show up in search, you can't get access to it, et cetera, et cetera. Delve works the same way and works on the same premise. One reason that it's very important to understand that is because as you're rolling this out in your organization, you will want to make sure that your SharePoint security is well set up, because the way the SharePoint security is set up is going to feed directly into what users can see here in Delve. So that's really important. Security and privacy are going to be critical as we're moving forward with this technology and rolling it out in our organizations. So I wanted to make sure that everybody understands that. So over here on our left, we have what amounts to an incredibly simple navigation. I have 3 sections here. When you start your Delve for the first time, you'll actually only have 2 because you won't probably have set up any boards yet, which we're going to talk about in a minute. So home, well, that's pretty obvious. It's your home. It's an aggregation of all of the content and activities that you would expect to be seeing at any given time. So what should you expect to see? Well, you should expect to see recent documents that you've interacted with. As you can see here, test 3, 4, and 5 were pretty active yesterday, as well as some other documents down below. You should see attachments from emails, from relevant content tags. I don't have one of those right now, but what's important to understand about that is that you're not going to see the content of the email. You're just going to see the attachment. No one else will see the attachment unless they were copied on the original email. What it's doing is it's pulling the relationships from the email, who the email is for, who it's from, and then it's pulling a little bit of relevant content. But you're not actually going to see the content of the email. Also, email attachments, email messages protected with rights management won't show up in Delve. Your attachments are only going to show up in your home view. If you move them to another folder or delete them, they'll be gone from your Delve home screen. You'll also start to see people related to your link conversation over here on the left. My work. My work is exactly what it sounds like. It's really what you specifically have been working on lately. One thing that's really, really important to understand when it comes to Delve is that it's very, very tightly integrated with OneDrive. So documents that you've been working with in OneDrive, sharing out with colleagues, they are going to show up in your My Work, and they're going to show up relatively quickly. I have noticed in my experience with Delve that in some activities it takes nearly 24 hours for them to actually show up. For example, when I initially set up my boards over here on the left. Other activities, especially document management within OneDrive, show up nearly immediately, which is really exciting to me as an end user because right then and there, I have the opportunity to just grab that document I was recently working on, rather than going up to my OneDrive, digging way down into my folder structure. It's actually right here at my fingertips for me because Delve knows that I was working on that really recently, and I'm probably going to want to work on it again very soon. The same premise is working with Shared With Me. Obviously, Shared With Me, sharing huge, huge conversation in SharePoint 2013 and in Office 365, and that conversation continues here. We're really trying to take a different look at the way we're working. You'll notice that aside from my comment earlier about it showing up Outlook attachments here within your Office 365 environment, none of this is predicated on people emailing things back and forth to one another. It's really concentrated on working within your SharePoint environment, working within your OneDrive, working in the constructs of what's going on in Office 365 to push content to people. Boards are a relatively new addition to Delve. They came out in, I believe, mid-January, although anybody on the phone can feel free to correct me on that. You'll notice, again, a privacy statement here. When you set up a board, they will mention to you that boards are public. So you want to be careful not to put anything on a board that you don't really want other people to see. Boards are open to everyone. So take note of that. Read the privacy and security and the exact way boards are set up before you go ahead and set up a board. For those of you who are familiar with Pinterest, boards are the exact same concept. It gives you an opportunity to essentially categorize and create metadata around your content that's being pushed at you. Why is this so cool? Well, I haven't seen in OneDrive yet an opportunity to actually tag my content, right? You're still in that old-fashioned, if you will, folder structure construct. Well, now in this situation, all of my content that's coming from OneDrive, coming down into my Delve, I actually have an opportunity to essentially tag it. I can categorize it. So these pieces of content, for example, had to do with financial reports. But they could have to do with more than one thing. Maybe they're financial reports and maybe they're 2012. Maybe they're financial reports and they're 2011. So there's interesting ways that I can start to slice and dice my content and see it in views that are relevant to me as a user. All honestly without having to leave this interface at all. People. So I'll be really honest with you. People were very confusing to me when I started looking at Delve for the first time. I really couldn't figure out where these people were coming from. And part of that came from my understanding and thought process about how colleagues worked in SharePoint. To me, if you were colleagues in SharePoint, you should be showing up on your people in Delve. That's true to an extent, but Delve's people are a bit more, they have deeper relationships than that to you. So your people list in Delve is going to constantly change and fluctuate based on who you're working with across your wide network at any given time. So as you saw from my home screen, Alex Darrow and I, my good friends, have been working on all of these test documents in the last 24 hours. So Alex is right at the top of my people list because there's an assumption there that's made with the algorithms that are driving Delve that if I'm working with Alex on several documents at any given time, then he's an important person in my network at that given moment. You will see this list change. Yesterday, Ann Wallace was at the top of my list. Let's go ahead and add something to a board here just so you can see how easy it is to do that. And in about 24 hours, you'll see test boards show up here on the left. And this link will take you directly to the SharePoint group where this document is from, which is really interesting user interface if you need to jump straight to SharePoint. This is something that we as users hear a lot about people that has to do with SharePoint. I don't remember where that document is. I don't want to dig through all of these groups that I'm a member of. I'm a member of 500 groups. How do I just jump right back there? Oh, I've bookmarked all of my groups, or following doesn't really work with me. Whatever the case is, this minimizes it incredibly because what we're doing here is we're giving priority to recently worked on content, and then we're basically giving you a direct link to that content. Just going to click the little email here, and you'll see that you can send a direct email to a fellow user. Why is this great? Well, from a user adoption standpoint, again, we are not sending an attachment, right? We're sending a link to content that somebody should have access to. When you click your people here, you'll see a list of everybody that this has been shared with, which is really useful from a security standpoint. For me, when I first started using this, I clicked that a lot. I really wanted to feel more comfortable and get a better understanding of how Delve was giving me content. And honestly, I wanted to feel comfortable about the fact that people really weren't seeing things that they shouldn't be. After a few weeks, I do feel confident about that, and I did start to feel better about it. 2 views over here. That's usually really useful, just a little metric that we don't see a lot in a lot of our SharePoint work or in our OneDrive work. So it gives you an opportunity to sort of understand what is relevant in your universe at any given time. Not represented here, but something that's important to point out is that Delve does support video now through the Office 365 video portal. So if you're interacting with any multimedia, that will also start to show up here on your home screen. So let's switch back here and start to talk about the implications of all of this. What's coming up in the future for us? mind, what we really have here is one-stop shopping, right? A lot of the complaints that we've heard from people about going to this system for X and this system for Y and, oh, the intranet on SharePoint for Z. A lot of that starts to go away when we look at Delve and 365 as a whole and what it's doing for us by aggregating all of our activity into one place, which is frankly what we hear from people time and time again. I want to be the center of my own universe, and I want everything in one place. I don't want to have to go to 50 places to get what I need. Delve is moving us in the direction of making that very, very possible for us. Quick access to people. What we're looking at here, and what you probably noticed in the short demonstration that we had, is that I have all of my colleagues at my fingertips. So instantly I can email them, link message with them, join a group with them, share content with them. Unlike the past, where sometimes that would take 2, 3, 4 steps, suddenly it's all within the context of one activity. I can't say enough about the simplistic user interface here. I think we owe it to Pinterest. We need to thank them for the card pin-like user interface that has become so popular in the past 2 to 2.5 years. We feel very comfortable with that as users. We understand that. It's very visual. It's very appealing. I appreciate the fact that Delve looks like that because there wasn't a learning curve here when you start working with this software. That'll be really important as you're rolling this out with your organizations. You want to make sure that they feel comfortable and that they understand that this really, it's not a new application that you're rolling out. It is actually facilitating all of the other applications they have. So that'll be an important message to start giving your users. One piece of information that many of you may know is that, when Microsoft purchased Yammer a couple years ago, they didn't change the way the group at Yammer worked, which was incredibly iteratively. The group at Yammer, they would roll out features, they would do a lot of A/B testing, they'd roll back features very quickly. There are some users who don't like that model because, one day the events are there and one day they're gone, which can be challenging as an end user. On the other hand, improvements tend to come a lot faster. The idea is very sprint and agile model. 365, as many of us know, is following that model. Microsoft is rolling out features relatively quickly here, particularly with regard to Delve and a few of the other applications. And so we're seeing improvements based on our feedback as end users very, very quickly, which is really exciting. Already, just in the time that I've been using Delve since late 2014, we've seen boards added on. All of these privacy messages that weren't there before are there now, which are, they're excellent from an end user standpoint. They really educate the end user about things that could potentially be a roadblock for them. So this iterative roadmap that they're following of small, incremental, but valuable improvements quickly actually really benefits us as users going forward. I see Delve as the future of user adoption when it comes to SharePoint and Office 365. I truly believe that if you move your organization in this direction, users are going to begin to love the fact that all of their content and all of their activities are literally right at their fingertips in one interface. And I don't think that we've been able to say that yet as productive workers, any time in recent history. So what's happening here from a information architecture standpoint, from a user experience standpoint, and just purely from a technology nerd standpoint is really, really exciting. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to share it with everyone today. Julia, are there any questions?
We do have a couple questions. First, is this ever going to be available outside of Office 365?
There's a lot of speculation. You'll find a lot of blogs from people much smarter than myself out there talking about this. Some tittering at Microsoft. You can pretty much judge from the Ignite agendas and courses that are being offered that this is going to be a really hot topic this year. You know, last year it was sort of the unveiling of Office Graph. This year it's how to actually use it and to move forward and make your office more productive. The word on the street is that yes, eventually you will be able to, via a variety of APIs, you know, work with Office Graph and start creating experiences like Delve in your hybrid solutions. There hasn't been as much conversation that I've seen online about being able to do that in purely on-premise solutions. But surely as this catches on and as people start to see the value of it, there will be opportunities there. I've seen some conversations mentioning that perhaps it's a third-party opportunity. So we're not really sure the way that's going to go, but it's definitely on the table, and people are having discussions about it. Another interesting thing that I've seen is that hopefully in the short term, Yammer conversations will be something that are worked into your homepage as a key part of content. So how that's going to happen, when that's going to happen, we don't know. But you know, we do know that what's going on in Yammer is going to start to be just as important as what's going on in SharePoint and what's going on in your OneDrive and what's going on in your email. So the intent is to give you, again, a one-stop shop. So very exciting. It goes back to that iterative, fast-paced, quick improvements roadmap.
Okay, great. So I'm going to try to read this question. If I have a board with content and someone views my board, if they don't have access to a resource, but I have it on my board, will they see it?
They shouldn't. They should see your board. So the fact that you have a board, they will know. But no, they should not see the content if they don't have access to it.
Okay, great. And one more question. As far as privacy goes, does Delve actually look at the content in our emails?
No, it doesn't. It looks at the relationships in the email. So who's copied on it, who's to, who's it from, and it looks at the attachments and the way the attachments and who it's to and who it's from are interacting with sort of what else is going on in your universe. So it's not reading all your emails and giving you email content on your home page. It's also not reading your link conversations. It knows that you're having a link conversation with someone, and if you're doing that often, they're probably going to show up pretty high on your people list, but it's not going to surface the actual content from that conversation.
Okay, great. If anyone else has any questions, please insert them in the question window or tweet at us. We can get to your questions after the presentation, and we can answer those. Again, the recording of today's presentation will be on our website, sharepoint.protiviti.com. Thank you, everyone, for attending today. Thank you, Maggie, for presenting. And again, we will be back in 2 weeks where we'll be talking about SharePoint design. So everyone, have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks.